Rain tapped rhythmically on the plexiglass dome above the Earth Cultural Exchange Pavilion, a humming bubble nestled within the sprawling Galactic University on Relu Station. Inside the humid confines of the pavilion, rows of garden terrariums buzzed with live arboreal frogs, jumping spiders, and crickets the size of walnuts, all bred for culinary and research purposes. Rhett Kanley, Earth's assigned representative for the Interspecies Anthropology program, crouched near a low terrarium and squinted at the readout on the nutrient levels. His brown hair was a mess. His jumpsuit had a suspicious orange stain down one leg, and he reeked faintly of paprika and toasted mealworm. "Excuse me," a voice interrupted, flat and clipped. Rhett looked up. Standing in front of him was a tall, lean alien student wearing the standard translucent learning robe of the Xyrillian cohort. Its skin shimmered faintly, a bluish hue shifting with the light, and its 6 fingers were curled neatly behind its back. "Yes," Rhett stood, brushing bug shell off his knees. "I am Tralkin of Xyril. I am assigned to observe human nutritional rituals. I observed you ingesting a deep-fried insect with red spices. Why did you consume it?" Rhett's eyes twinkled. "Because," he said, wiping his fingers on a cloth, "they taste like victory." Tralkin blinked once, the only indicator of emotion. "Victory, is that a flavor?" "Not technically. But sometimes, when you survive a scorpion tornado in Nevada with nothing but a jar of chili powder and a bag of protein bugs, it kind of feels like one." Tralkin tilted its head. "Please explain the scorpion tornado," Rhett sighed. "That's a long story. I have 4 cycles before my next knowledge block." "Well then," Rhett said, grinning, "pull up a chair." Tralkin remained standing. "All right, suit yourself." Rhett wandered over to the prep bench. A tray of freshly roasted crickets coated in ghost pepper seasoning cooled beside a bowl of dipping sauce made from fermented cactus fruit. He picked one up and popped it into his mouth, chewing thoughtfully. "It started back on Earth, 3 years ago. I was part of the Nevada Desert Survival Trials, one of the last human-only events before the Galactic Council approved full cultural integration. The idea was to test new sustainable food sources for long-duration space expeditions. Bugs were on the menu." Tralkin's gaze narrowed. "Why not synth food? We were trying to cut down on reliance. Stuff breaks. Having a backup food source that can breed itself and survive in a Martian greenhouse, that's gold." He picked up another cricket. "Anyway, the desert was brutal. 43 Celsius by midday, no shade. We'd been out there 4 days when the scorpion storm hit. Define scorpion storm. Localized wind funnel picks up loose sand, debris, and because this is Nevada, scorpions, thousands of them. One of the guys in my unit, Marcus, took 3 stings before we found shelter under an overturned solar rover." Tralkin's eyes shimmered faintly. "You survived?" "Barely. The med drone patched Marcus up but couldn't fly us out. The storm fried the signal relays. We were down to a half-day's rations and a packet of cricket larvae I'd been saving as a joke." Rhett pointed to the tray. "I seasoned them with chili dust from my emergency spice tin. Marcus gagged, but I made him eat. We huddled there for 2 days until search and rescue found us. By then, we'd started roasting the scorpions too. Tastes like burnt rubber, but you get used to it." Tralkin's pupils dilated slightly. "You consumed poisonous arthropods for sustenance." "We cooked the venom out, and we were starving." "Hunger teaches you to be creative." Tralkin was silent for a long moment. "I require first-hand observation. May I witness your preparation process?" "Sure. You ever had a cricket taco before?" "I have not consumed any terrestrial arthropod." Rhett handed over a pair of gloves. "Then welcome to the adventure, my translucent friend." They spent the next hour preparing a batch of Rhett's signature Victory Bites, deep-fried crickets tossed in habanero dust, served with lime crema and microgreens grown in the hydroponic bay. Tralkin observed every step, occasionally asking questions about oil temperature regulation, spice ratios, and the purpose of the citrus. "It cuts the heat," Rhett explained, "gives it balance. Your species uses pain as flavor. Spice isn't pain, Rhett said. It's a challenge. Makes you feel alive. Tralkin stared at the tray. I will attempt ingestion. Go for the medium one. Ease into it. The alien raised one of the spiced crickets to its mouth, hesitated, then took a small bite. It chewed slowly, moments passed. I am experiencing internal combustion, it said. Rhett laughed. That's the habanero. I believe I am. Crying, congratulations. You're officially initiated. Later that week, Tralkin returned with 2 other Xyrillian students, both curious and skeptical. Rhett set up a small grill near the edge of the pavilion and began roasting a new batch, this time with the addition of powdered charcoal peppers harvested from the Martian hydroponic labs. One of the new students, Malak, refused to try anything at first. But then Tralkin said, "They taste like victory," and to Rhett's amazement, Malak relented. What began as a novelty became a weekly ritual. Rhett's bug-based fusion dishes spread across campus. A Gralvian professor called it culinary insanity, but still came back for seconds. The cooking sessions became more elaborate. Rhett began mixing earth spices with alien herbs, creating flavors no one had tasted before. But not everything was smooth. During a cultural food gala, Rhett introduced a new dish, fire ant croquettes with volcanic pepper glaze. He'd been testing the glaze for heat levels and underestimated its intensity. 5 minutes after serving, a visiting diplomat from the Creole Confederacy collapsed. Medical teams rushed in. Rhett was pulled into questioning by the station's interspecies safety board. You served a Creole ambassador a compound that caused immediate mucosal blistering and respiratory irritation, a stern-faced officer barked. I didn't know Creole respiratory systems reacted to capsaicin vapor, Rhett said, hands sweating. I ran internal safety checks. On humans? That's insufficient. Rhett was placed on suspension for 2 weeks. During that time, he reviewed every known alien biological profile he could access, building a spice tolerance chart by species. Tralkin visited him daily. I have been replicating your dishes in the lab, Tralkin said. The Creole have unusually porous airway linings. Yeah, I figured that out. Tralkin held out a small container. I modified your glaze using Theron milkweed instead of peppers, same flavor profile. No mucosal impact. Rhett took the sample, tasted it, and raised an eyebrow. That's actually genius. I have learned from your adaptability, Rhett smiled. Looks like we're both learning. Once reinstated, Rhett returned with a vengeance. He launched a new food series called Diplomatic Dishes, each one tailored to a specific species. The Xyrillians got a cooling cricket ceviche. The Creole got a sweet and savory locust tart with 0 spice. The Gralvians got something that resembled fermented mud topped with caramelized beetle legs. Rhett's dishes started appearing in interspecies eateries. A human eating bugs was no longer seen as primitive, it was innovative, functional, resilient. Rhett stood one evening at the edge of the pavilion, watching a group of alien students laugh and chew thoughtfully on spicy beetle skewers. Tralkin stood beside him, holding a tray. You have shifted perception. I just cook bugs, Tralkin. No, you framed adversity as flavor. You turned survival into celebration. Rhett chuckled. You're getting poetic. I consumed 16 roasted ants today. Rhett blinked. You okay? Yes. I am experiencing emotional elevation. Perhaps joy. That's the ghost pepper talking. Tralkin looked at him. Victory then, victory, Rhett said, raising his skewer. Their skewers clinked together, the rain still ticking above them, the scent of spice hanging thick in the air. By the time the 4th week of the cross-species culinary module arrived, the air around the Earth Cultural Exchange Pavilion had taken on a permanent tang, equal parts charred beetle shell, fermented thorn fruit, and whatever compound made Gralvian citrus curl human nose hairs inward. Rhett had just finished sealing a tray of cold stuffed hornworm rolls when a sharp triple tone buzzed from the wall console. Tralkin stood nearby, trimming the outer husk from a bundle of swamproot tendrils with a tool that resembled a melon baller fused to a surgical scalpel. The Xyrilian's head flicked toward the sound without pausing its motion. That signal indicates administrative override. Someone is entering without request. Rhett wiped his hands on a towel and muttered, "Always a good sign." The doors hissed open. A tall figure stepped through, ducking only slightly to avoid the arch. Pale gray eyes scanned the room, and the long folds of its cloak clicked faintly as it moved. The creature's carapace shimmered beneath a translucent shroud of protective gel, a high-ranking drill, unmistakably. "Director Vol," Tralkin said, lowering its tool. The drill's voice emerged with a soft, clicking undertone. "I have been advised of a procedural violation concerning interspecies ingestion protocols." Rhett stepped forward, palms slightly raised. "If this is about the Creel incident that was resolved, I've been cleared." Vol's compound eyes darkened. "This is not a disciplinary inquiry. I am here for observation." Rhett blinked. "Observation of what?" The drill's mandibles shifted. "You." "A drill cadet wishes to participate in your culinary training. I must determine whether your methods pose a risk to our physiological integrity." Tralkin looked at Rhett. "You may need to adjust your approach." "I don't even know what drill eat," Rhett said. "Primarily protein gels filtered through digestive membranes," Tralkin replied. "Their species evolved without mastication." Rhett turned to Vol. "So no chewing, got it. I'm assuming spice is off the menu, correct?" "Our systems interpret capsaicin as a corrosive agent. Makes sense." Vol's gaze lingered on a tray of blistered meal beet fritters. "And yet your kind consumes it recreationally." "We do a lot of things recreationally that don't make sense to anyone else." A drill youth entered behind Vol. Shorter, with paler exoskeletal plates and a faint green hue along the thorax, probably adolescent. It moved with a cautious gait, as though adjusting to the station's gravity. "This is Oral," Vol said. Oral extended a forelimb. Rhett shook it without hesitation, noting the smoothness like frog skin under glass. "Welcome to the madness," Rhett said. "Do you have any allergies?" "None," Oral replied. Its voice was softer than Vol's, more melodic. "But I have never tasted anything solid." Tralkin handed Oral a protective apron. "You will not need to ingest today. This stage is observational." Rhett gestured to the prep bench. "We're building a dish for the Theron delegation. They've got an intolerance for ammonia-based compounds, so we're using a base of neutral starch and fermented root paste." Oral leaned in. "Why the fermentation?" "It breaks down the sugars into simpler acids, adds complexity without triggering their gut reactions." Oral studied the bowl. "How did you learn this?" "Trial, error, and a lot of very polite vomiting." Tralkin twitched an ear frond. "The Theron ambassador sent a thank you memo. He referred to Rhett's last dish as inedibly beautiful yet digestible." "I'll take it," Rhett said. 3 hours later, after the root paste had been steamed, cooled, and molded into edible latticework, Vol nodded toward Oral. "You will now attempt replication." Oral's limbs moved with mechanical care. It used the shaping mold incorrectly twice before Rhett stepped behind and guided its arms. "Don't press from above. Let the paste settle by gravity. It needs to breathe." Oral hesitated. "You treat food like a living thing." "Sometimes it is, but mostly it's about respect. If you're gonna put something in someone else's body, it better be worth it." Oral looked at its misshapen lattice. "This will not be served." "Nope, you'll eat it yourself." "But I cannot." Rhett cut in. "You can. Just not the way we do." Tralkin handed over a gelatinizer, a small device that converted solids into drill-compatible gel. Oral placed the malformed lattice inside, activated the cycle, and waited. The machine hummed, then ejected a translucent blue orb. Oral tilted its head. "It smells different than expected." "Because it's yours," Rhett said. "First time always does." Oral consumed the orb, its thoracic plates fluttered. "Bit sour?" Rhett asked. "Unfamiliar," Oral said, "but not unpleasant." Vol stepped closer. You have demonstrated an understanding of drill limitations. I will authorize continued participation. Rhett nodded. Glad to have Oral in the kitchen. When the drill left, Tralkin returned to the prep bench and began slicing a bundle of kelp-like stalks with rhythmic precision. You did not inquire about their political motives, it said. I'm not here to do politics, Rhett replied, pouring a thin sauce over a tray of puffed larvae. But I'll feed whoever walks through that door. You feed to connect, Rhett shrugged. We all eat. Might as well start there. The following afternoon, Rhett found himself hunched over a datapad, cross-referencing the digestion rates of 5 alien species while trying to adjust a marinade recipe. He was halfway through calculating the ideal acidity level for a Valari palate when an alarm chirped. Containment breach in Habitat Quadrant 3. A voice crackled over the comm. Rhett looked up. That's the hydroponic bay. Tralkin burst through the side entrance seconds later, one of its palms slick with a clear film. There has been a fungal explosion. My kelp fermenters ruptured. Spore clouds are spreading. Rhett dropped the datapad. Are they toxic? To humans? No. But they may trigger respiratory distress in species with sensitive cilia membranes. Rhett grabbed a filtration mask and sprinted after Tralkin. Inside the hydroponic bay, the air shimmered with a faint, glittery haze. Machines vented steam into the ceiling ducts, trying to scrub the air. At least a dozen trays of kelp stood tilted, their contents bubbling ominously. Rhett moved fast, checking ventilation panels, isolating fermentation valves, and overriding the humidifier's auto-cycle. Get me stasis gel, he shouted. Tralkin hurled a canister his way. Rhett caught it and applied thick layers around the compromised fermenters. The gel foamed, hardening into a crust that sealed the leak. When the haze cleared, a maintenance droid trundled in and began vacuuming residual spores. Tralkin leaned against a column, panting. You are not trained in emergency bioengineering. No, Rhett said, peeling off his gloves. But I've cleaned out a clogged fermentation tank in 0G with nothing but a spoon and a garbage bag. Tralkin stared. That is not a standard procedure. It worked. After cleanup, they returned to the kitchen, both coated in thin layers of dried gel and kelp residue. Rhett collapsed onto a bench. I need a shower. You need hydration. Right. Tralkin handed him a flask of electrolyte broth. It tasted like salty pickles and copper, but Rhett drank anyway. Your improvisations are frequently effective, Tralkin said, but extremely unorthodox. Rhett leaned back, eyes closed. Most of us don't know what we're doing until it's already done. I find that unsettling. You get used to it. As the sun lamps dimmed to simulate evening, Oral returned, carrying a small tray. I attempted a new gel infusion, it said. Based on the flavor profile of the Theron dish. Rhett examined the contents, small, glistening domes with flecks of green and gold suspended inside. I didn't teach you how to do this, he said. You taught me to experiment. Rhett took a bite. The gel dissolved instantly, leaving a burst of sweet, earthy flavor. He blinked. Not bad. Oral's eyes brightened. It is named curiosity. Fitting, Rhett said. That's how most of our best mistakes start. No one spoke for a while. They just sat, each chewing or absorbing their chosen dish, the kitchen humming softly around them. Outside, the rain had stopped. A faint mist clung to the dome, catching the last reflections of simulated starlight. The next morning brought a sharp drop in station temperature, a result of the environmental systems overcompensating after the previous day's kelp fermentation malfunction. Condensation clung to the walls of the Earth Cultural Exchange Pavilion like a cold sweat. Rhett Kanley stood at the prep sink, rotating his shoulders stiffly. He'd spent the night on a bench with a heat wrap around his neck and a half-eaten protein bar stuck to his elbow. Tralkin approached with a bundle of frost-speckled greens. Your thermal regulation appears suboptimal. Back's tight. Shouldn't have braced the gel seal with my spine yesterday. Didn't think those fermenters would burp with that much force. That was not part of the documented containment risk. Well, now it is. Add explosive spore expansion under unexpected kitchen hazards. Oral entered behind them, balancing a tray with a curious apparatus. A small chamber with a rotating spindle inside, connected to a nutrient drip. "I've built a flavor diffuser," Oral said. "It replicates the scent profile of a dish without requiring ingestion. Thought it might help species with restrictive diets participate in the next tasting." Rhett raised both eyebrows. "That's brilliant." Tralkin inspected the device. "You used components from the old atmospheric humidifier," Oral clicked once in affirmation. "They were discarded." Rhett suggested adaptive sourcing. Rhett grinned. "Recycling with flair, I'm proud." They were interrupted by a chime at the outer dome. The entry panel displayed a figure in a thermal cloak and wide-lensed ocular shield. Rhett tapped the release. The visitor ducked inside, his breath visibly condensing. Under the cloak was a squat creature with segmented skin and a sharp, downward-pointing snout. He removed the shield and blinked skyward with slow deliberation. "Name's Rhett. Valari Associate Researcher, Sensory Biochemistry Track. I heard the human makes taste from insects." Rhett nodded. "You're looking at him." "I've got a challenge for you." Tralkin's fronds twitched. "This is not a public performance venue." Rhett ignored the comment and pulled a sealed container from his coat. Inside were pale, gelatinous orbs floating in a pungent brine. "These are psyllar pods. We harvest them during the brief thaw season. They've got a scent like fermented rubber but no inherent flavor. You up for making something from nothing?" Rhett leaned closer, cautiously unscrewing the lid. The smell hit him like a tire fire in a vinegar factory. "Why would you eat these?" "Because we have to. Our digestive systems are selective. 90% of organic compounds make us sick. These don't, but they're like chewing memory foam soaked in pond water." Oral stepped back from the scent. "They are assertive." Rhett pinched his nose. "You want me to turn this into a dish? I want you to make it enjoyable." He stared at the pods. "Give me 2 hours." Rhett grunted. "I'll be back. Don't dilute it too much. We still need the base compound for absorption." Once the Valari left, Rhett dropped onto a stool. "This is going to be rough." Tralkin began typing on a console. "I will cross-reference known flavor pairings with low allergen potential for Valari biology. I need to neutralize the smell without removing the pod structure. Maybe a cold infusion, something to bind the odor molecules." Oral opened a cabinet. "We have carbon bark from the Gralvian spice trade. It absorbs aromatic compounds." Rhett grinned. "Perfect. Let's make a tea." They boiled the bark in a sealed vessel, dropped in the pods, and cooled the mixture rapidly using cryogel packs. The smell lessened, replaced by a faint mineral aroma. Rhett then whipped up a glaze using theron root syrup and micro-crushed kelp ash, brushing it lightly over the pods. He plated the dish on chilled ceramic, adding a thin wafer of crisp starch for texture. Each pod rested in a tiny well of its own glaze, almost elegant. Rhett returned precisely 2 hours later. He sniffed the air suspiciously. "Still smells like something died in here, but not in the usual way." Rhett handed him a fork. "Go ahead, carefully." Rhett picked up a pod, chewed slowly, and froze. Then he blinked twice. "It's gotta finish." "Sweet, salty, and umami," Rhett said. "Took a bit of coaxing." Rhett swallowed. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd eat that again." Tralkin scanned Rhett's vitals. No signs of adverse reaction. Rhett tapped the plate. "You're not just a cook. You're a converter." "I like the term flavor architect better." Rhett laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. "You're weird. I like that." He left without further ceremony, muttering something about exporting bark extract to Valari outposts. Tralkin began cleaning the prep bench. "That was an unusually high-risk taste test." "I've done worse," Rhett said, rotating his shoulder again. "We used to deep-fry expired seaweed in college. You haven't known true fear until you've eaten something that smells like a sump pump and fizzes in your mouth." Oral looked up. "Why would you consume expired food?" "We were broke. Curiosity and desperation are powerful motivators." Tralkin placed the used utensils into the sterilizer. You continually defy logical food safety guidelines. And yet, Rhett said, holding up an untouched pod, we're still here. Later that evening, the station lighting dimmed to dusk mode. Rhett, now scrubbed and in a fresh jumpsuit, leaned against the doorway of the pavilion's storage annex, sipping a warm, nutrient broth. The day had cooled considerably. Outside the dome, a few Dralion students drifted past, their long limbs swaying like underwater kelp. Oral sat on a nearby bench, sketching a new diffuser prototype. Tralkin was calibrating the molecular flavor printer in the corner. Rhett broke the quiet. You know, when I first got here, I thought I'd be teaching. Turns out I'm doing more learning than anything. Tralkin didn't look up. That is an expected outcome of cultural immersion. I came in thinking everyone would be amazed we eat bugs and laugh at danger. I didn't expect to be humbled by a pod that smells like chemical warfare. Oral rotated the diffuser component. You adapt because you do not begin from certainty. That's one way to put it. Tralkin adjusted the printer settings. Your methods lack discipline, but your results are often effective. That contradiction is inconvenient to categorize. Welcome to humanity, Rhett said, raising his cup in mock salute. The printer chimed, signaling readiness. Tralkin loaded the next batch of culinary simulations. Outside, the dome lights flickered, then settled into a soft glow. The air smelled faintly of toasted starch and something vaguely citrusy. Calm, clean, Rhett finished his drink and exhaled. No emergencies, no exploding fermenters, nobody crying from spice today. I think we're finally at equilibrium. Oral looked up. Is this what humans call a good day? Yeah, Rhett said, stretching. No one bled, no one barfed, and something weird turned out edible. That's a victory. Tralkin powered down the prep station. Then we shall mark it accordingly. They stood in silence a moment longer, the three of them framed by the soft hum of equipment and the distant chatter of species passing by. Their kitchen, once a curiosity, had become something else entirely, a place of collaboration. A place of understanding, born not from grand speeches or treaties, but from trial and taste. And above all, a place where someone could hold up a steaming, spice-laced insect and declare with absolute conviction, it tastes like victory.